and Facebook. Welcome to Brookfield Zoo's Bringing the Zoo to You. My name is Jill, and with me we have Christy and Craig, and we're animal care specialists here at Hamel Family Wild Encounters. We're talking about some really special animals today, a tarantula and a black widow spider. Now, if you're one of the types that see these animals and might get a little scared, I'm asking you to bear with us a little bit because we've got some really cool facts to tell you about these really amazing animals and their adaptations and the important role that they play in our environment. So these animals are classified as arachnids, which are a type of arthropod. Arachnids are a little bit different than something else you might be familiar with, insects. So they have, arthropods have segmented bodies and exoskeletons. Now, arachnids have 8 legs. So if you look at Charlotte here, you can see she has 8 legs. And in the front, she also has what are called pedipalps. Those are the little ones in the front that are a little bit shorter, and those help her to grab onto her food. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, they also have 2 body segments, a cephalothorax and an abdomen, whereas insects will have 6 legs and 3 body segments. So other types of arachnids are obviously spiders, but that also includes scorpions, mites, and there's a few others as well. So right now we're looking at Charlotte, and Charlotte is called a Chilean rose-haired tarantula. Now, as the name implies, they are found in South America, so in Chile, Bolivia, and I think the third is Argentina, I believe. So they are found in desert areas or in scrublands, and they typically will live in burrows. So they can dig their own burrows, but they could also live in burrows that are abandoned by other animals. So you can see animal care specialist Christy here is actually holding Charlotte. So Charlotte is a very docile type of tarantula, and these are really common as pets. So we don't know for sure how old Charlotte is, but she's been with us for about 6 years. So she is full grown. Now it's kind of interesting that one of the main ways to tell male and females apart is by their size. There are a few other anatomical differences, but for the most part, the females will be larger than the males. So Charlotte's about maybe 5 or 6 inches, but the males are typically more like 3.5 to 4. They also differ a lot in their lifespan. So the females live a lot longer than the males. They can live anywhere from 20 to 25 years or more. And the males typically live like maybe 3 or 4 years. So just a little bit past their maturity. So you see she's kind of exploring Christy's hands a little bit over here. So arachnids do have eyes. They actually have 8 eyes, but they're very simple eyes and they're fixed in place. So they can't see very well. But they do rely on what we call hairs that are all over their body to help them to kind of sense their environment. Now they're called hairs, but it's a little misleading because spiders aren't mammals. The hairs aren't made of keratin like our hair is. They're made of something called chitin. So all these hairs all over her body, like I said, they help her to sense her environment, but they also help her to protect herself. So on the back side of her abdomen, and I can point right around over here, these are her spinnerets, which she'd spin her web from. But right in this area, she has what are called urticating hairs. And that's part of her defense mechanism. So if she felt threatened, she would actually use her back legs to kick off the hairs on the back of her abdomen. And those are barbed, so they can actually stick into your skin and make you kind of itchy, or if they get into your eyes, they would really bother your eyes. So that's one of the ways she protects herself. But they are also venomous. So their venom is similar to a bee sting. So for people, that's not too terrible, unless you have some kind of allergy. And there's actually no tarantulas on record that have killed a human. Some have some very strong venom that's stronger than this type of tarantula. But like I said, this one's not so bad. So that's another way that they can defend themselves. Now we could talk about what they eat too. So here at the zoo, we feed them mostly crickets, and they get fed twice a week. But in the wild, they can eat other types of bugs. Some of the larger species of tarantulas can eat small mammals or even small reptiles or birds. They are nocturnal, so they do hunt at night, and they'll usually kind of wait by their burrow and wait for something to come across. So if we look, this is her enclosure that she lives in. So if you look, she actually has a little bit of a web that she made here. So it's different than the web you would find from a spider that lives in your house. So tarantulas do not hang on their webs, but they use it as a way to mark their territory and also as a way to kind of sense if something that they might want to eat is nearby. So how about a joke? Hey, Christy.
Yeah?
Why are spiders terrible at keeping secrets?
I don't know.
Because they post everything on their web. Yeah. So again, so Charlotte would use her web mostly to alert her if something was nearby. You could see her kind of exploring her web right now, kind of moving around. Another cool thing about tarantulas is that they molt. So you might be familiar with that a snake or other reptiles might shed their skin. Tarantulas do something similar. So actually right here, we have some molts that we have from some of our other tarantulas. So this one on the left of your screen is from a Mexican red-knee tarantula. And as they get older, they get a little dry, so unfortunately, one of the legs fell off. And then this one is actually from our Goliath bird-eating spider, which is the largest type of tarantula, also from South America. And we do have one on exhibit at the Hamill Family Play Zoo, yeah. So when they molt, they actually will grow back any urticating hairs that they had kicked off previously. And sometimes if they're young, they can even grow back lost limbs. It's pretty interesting. So right now we're going to pass it over to animal care specialist Craig for our next animal.
All right, so now I'm going to talk about one of the most feared spiders. And now, fear for these guys is natural, but I would prefer that we respect the spider and not fear the spider because they're very important and they're just really fascinating animals. So over here, we have a juvenile black widow. So you're going to, hopefully you can see it. It's really small, and it should be quite a bit larger than that, and the coloration is off now too. So right now it's kind of like a brownish color with some spots. I think you're actually looking at it upside down as it's hanging from its web. But the normal coloration for the common black widow that we would come across, hopefully not that often, is black with a red hourglass shape on its abdomen. So again, like, these guys are commonly feared, and it's with good reason. These are considered to be the most venomous spider in North America. Now, while I say that, we shouldn't be too worried about these guys because most black widow bites are actually not fatal. So some common symptoms of these guys actually, when they inject venom, it's a neurotoxin. So it, where it bites, you might seize up, a little bit of paralysis. You might feel some nausea, some pain, a lot of pain, especially around the back and the abdomen. But if they were to bite you kind of closer to the chest, that's when you're a little bit more concerned because it gets harder to breathe. So again, the big thing for these guys though, if you're just a normal healthy adult, it's going to hurt a lot. Like, you're not going to like it, but you'll be fine, most likely. What's concerning is actually for children or elderly or people with that are health compromised. So these guys are actually considered to have venom that's 15 times stronger than a rattlesnake, if that gives you any perspective at all. But again, the rattlesnake bite is actually worse for us because their venom, the spider venom, is actually designed more for their prey. So again, while they can do some serious stuff to us, you wouldn't want to be something that these guys actually eat. And so, like Jill was talking about, the tarantula and the spiders, they eat insects. So they're actually a really good natural pest control. So again, maybe you're not comfortable having one of these guys in your house, but they are very important and they play a very important role in the environment, because I'd rather have this guy right here just hanging off in the corner than having a bunch of mosquitoes biting at me. So now these guys are not aggressive either. So a lot of times when people do get bit by these guys, it's by mistake. You accidentally sit on it or just kind of walk into their web, or anything like that, but they're likely going to try and get away from you before they have to bite you. Another neat thing about these guys too is, so like the opposite of the tarantula, they do spin hanging webs. And you can see this guy is hanging upside down now. The black widow actually has a really, really strong silk when they spin their web. It's so much so that in areas where these guys are pretty common, when people check for black widows, they're going to use a stick to try and sweep around and collect any web. And now, if you come across a black widow web with a stick, it's going to make a crackling or a crunching sound, so you can actually hear the web breaking. So that's how you would know, like in a dark place, if you were among a black widow, you'd hear the web break, and that's your sign to get out of there. So another neat misconception about the black widow is that they always eat their mate. Well, they will eat their mate. That's actually very true, but more often than not, the male can get away. So a lot of times when you hear about how often they do eat the mate after they successfully mate, those are under lab settings where the male can't actually get away. So, but they will eat their mate if they're able to. It'll help them with nutrients so that they can care for lay their egg sac properly, which can be anywhere from 200 to 900 babies. And now the babies will actually, when they hatch, they are cannibalistic as well, so they'll a lot of times eat each other. So out of the 200 to 900 babies, you're not going to see that many actually make it out into the world. So,
how big do black widows get?
They're not a very big spider, so this guy, as you can see, is pretty small, but they would probably get a couple inches, and they're kind of round. They're pretty standard spider size, honestly.
Standard spider size?
Not like these tarantulas or an orb weaver, but like the typical guy that you'd see in your house. Now, that's for a female, though. The males are actually quite a bit smaller, and they actually are quite a bit different looking. They don't really have that black coloration, and they don't have that red hourglass thing. They're like these weird little brown things that you wouldn't guess is actually a black widow. But again, that's not really the concern, because if you were to ever be bitten by a black widow, it's going to be a female that got you. The males don't really have long enough fangs to get you like a female would.
So where can you find these?
You can find these guys, well, it depends on which subspecies and which kind of widow you're looking at. So I guess you guys may or may not have known that there are multiple species of black widow or subspecies, but there's also brown widows and red widows. You can find widows almost on every continent, minus Antarctica, of course. Now, the guy that you're going to run into, I believe in North America, we have about 3 different subspecies, but there is a black widow that you'll see right here in the Midwest, and with climate change, temperature change, they're actually starting to move further into colder areas too. You'll also find certain species in Canada, so they're kind of everywhere.
Right, if somebody wanted to own a spider, what would be a good starter spider?
A great starter spider would there's actually a lot of really good species out there. I wouldn't recommend any of the bird-eating spiders, and while they're not typically aggressive, if they spook, they can cause some damage. But if you look at over here, these Chilean rose hares are pretty docile. You saw Christy pick her up. We've used these guys for chats, so they're pretty good at being held. And if they were to get spooked, they'll flick those hairs at you. You'll get itchy, but it's not that big a deal. If it were to bite you, it'd be like being bitten by a cat. The venom wouldn't do anything to you. It would kind of swell up. But this is a good species here. These Mexican red knees are really neat too, although I don't know how common you can find these guys. But these guys are really big and they're really impressive for such a chill animal. And then a lot of times when you see in movies when they have like big tarantulas, they model them after these red knees because they are like a really, really impressive animal, but they're also easy to take care of. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us and listening to us talk about these really cool animals. Hopefully your opinion changed a little bit about them, and while you should still be respectful of them, you shouldn't fear them or anything like that. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting us here at Brookfield Zoo, and we hope to see you guys soon.